I'm continuing southbound on the Trans-Canada Highway, flanking the eastern shore of Lake Superior. There are a few towns I come across, and it makes me wonder. What came first? The highway or the towns? Or railroads? In any case, in the next town coming up, Wawa. It's a town that came before everything else. As it turns out, they were begging for a highway for years, and when they finally got it, they'd make sure that no one would miss Wawa when driving past. So how did they do it? Just over the southern horizon, I'm about to see a looming metal bird come into my view. You know you're in Wawa when you can see the goose. So how did this town get here? The first white settlers were fur traders working for the Northwest Company, and after a few centuries, prospectors moved into the area. They were following Ojibwe guides that reported gold in the region. The word Wawa comes from Ojibwe, meaning place of clear water. Somewhere along the way, Wawa was mistranslated and everybody believed it to mean wild goose, because naturally, it's a sound that geese make. Wawa was along a major migratory flyway where Canadian geese travel to and from their traditional summer breeding grounds, so to many people, this just made sense. Gold was discovered in the 1890s and the town blew up to about 5,000 people. Unfortunately, this isolated town was not accessible by road or rail. The Canadian Pacific Railway actually passed to the north of Wawa, as it was quicker to have a direct route to the major Canadian cities of Ottawa and Toronto. For decades, the only way to get to Wawa was by steamboat on Lake Superior, or a short railway connection that was made after World War I. Fast forward to the 50s. The United States to the south was in the process of building one of its most successful and envied infrastructure projects, the U.S. Interstate System. We talked about the origins of the U.S. Interstate System on my episode on Albert Lee in my Greater Minnesota series, which is linked in the description below. Canada, meanwhile, was also trying to create its own Trans-Canada Highway, the highway I'm on now. The issue is that it was painfully slow to get funding. Laying down a highway through this region is difficult. You need to bulldoze miles of forest, cross dozens of rivers, and blast through extremely hard rock. As you've seen on either side of the highway, there's a lot of solid rock hills that this highway has to cut through. Wawa was lobbying hard to get its spot on the highway, and many politicians came and went claiming they'd bring a highway one day, usually during election season. Speaking of elections, during this time in the 50s, the city of Wawa changed its name to Jamestown for a short time. This upset the residents so much that they demanded a vote, and it was a blowout. The push for the name Jamestown was crushed, and the name Wawa won 550 to 104. It was finally declared that the Lake Superior length of the highway would pass through Wawa. It would be along the length that wrapped around Lake Superior from Sault Ste. Marie in the south to the future Thunder Bay in the west. When word got out, the people of Wawa came up with a creative new way to let travelers know that their town was there. A gigantic metal statue of a goose would be there to greet them. In 1960, when the last link of the Superior section of the Trans-Canadian Highway was completed, it was a cause for celebration. Not only were cars lined up for miles to the first ones into Wawa, but the people of Wawa had their own creation to unveil, a large metal goose along the highway. The first Wawa goose was 27 feet high and 23 feet long, and it was only made of wire mesh and plaster. Ontario's provincial government assisted by buying the concrete base and commemorative plaque, but a man by the name of Al Turcott spent $3,000 of his own money to get the idea of a metal goose off the ground, so to speak. The goose design was drafted with the help of folks that had built the Calgary Dinosaur Park in West Canada. Because the materials were so flimsy, it only lasted 3 years before the harsh winters wore it down. It was removed, but it still stands outside of a general store in town. The original was replaced with a second goose that was created with iron ore made from the local mines in the area. Fast forward to 2008, and it was decided again that it needed to be replaced. What you're looking at currently is the second goose, just as it was being dismantled. The third and current Wawa goose was unveiled just days after this visit in 2017. It was unveiled during the 150th anniversary of Canada celebrations, which are coming up soon on this trip. When you arrive in Wawa, there's no mistaking it. I knew none of this upon my visit. The allure of the gigantic goose worked on me, it seriously did. I'd been on the road for 127 kilometers that day, and it was one of the most interesting things that I'd come across. I had to stop.